Ladies and gentlemen, the one of the writers of AM Quickie, which Jack, as you know, will be available all next week when we're on vacation. So if folks need their fix of the daily news headlines, they can get it through the AM Quickie. And also, what is your title at the Discourse blog?
I think what we're going with is we are all co-owners. We're kind of referring to ourselves as a collective, I guess, for whatever that entails. I'm a writer. We've sort of generally fallen into our old roles as it was at Splinter. So I'm a writer. A couple of people are editors. Alex Chan handles sort of like the business and management side of things, and like the partnership with Substack and stuff like that. But in terms of a hierarchy, we're all pretty much just level.
Sweet. So the Discourse is a co-op, and what kind of stuff? I mean, I have a couple of pieces from that I pulled, and anything that basically anything titled Chuck Schumer is a clown is a must read as far as I'm concerned. And I agreed with the sentiments totally.
Yeah, so we're trying to do basically the same stuff and carrying on the same voice that we had at Splinter. And that's obviously going to be really critical of the Democratic establishment, just frankly because they've been bad for a very long time. And, you know, as well as, of course, realizing that the greater enemy in the country is the GOP. But yeah, Paul Blest has done really good reporting consistently. He knows like statewide politics better than anyone else that we have writing for us right now, I think, and is like really following some of these races in close detail. And so he did a really good piece for us this past week about just how massive of a goof it was for the Democrats to pour everything into the Amy McGrath campaign. And she like just narrowly beat a leftist challenger who spent a fraction of what she spent on this. And it's kind of, and she doesn't really have any better chance of beating McConnell than she did before this, you know, so they've just sunk millions and millions of dollars into this race on a candidate whose platform is basically like, I'm going to be a better Republican than McConnell is. So
couldn't agree more with that. Also, I also have to say the piece that Jack Merkinson wrote about the Lincoln Project, basically the Never Trumpers, the Republicans for Biden. It is the most enraging thing in the world that Rick Wilson and Steve Schmidt and I guess Jennifer Rubin and Bill Kristol, that these people, look, I don't mind them making ads. If they want to make ads, play them on Fox. That's great. But they should get not an iota of credit, credence, respect. They built this. And they're just like coming around saying Democrats. It's basically like going to the, Frankenstein's loose in the village and going to the townspeople and saying, hey, let me tell you how you should act around Frankenstein. Like, I'm sorry, you invented this. Go kill him and then exile yourself probably for 30 years is what my prescription would be.
It feels like the end point of this like trend that we've seen ever since Trump was elected, basically, of like, and Republicans were doing this in the op-ed pages of, you had like, I'm going to throw out Ross Douthat, but I don't know if it was him specifically, but you had Republicans in the New York Times op-ed pages like saying literally like to win, the Democrats need to go further right or something like that. And like the absolute lunacy of like letting the opposition party say like, actually, Democrats, if you want to win, what you need to do is exactly like is what we want you to do. Like if you had just been better Republicans and not Democrats, you would have beat Trump. And it's like, Trump wiped the floor with all of the regular Republicans. Like, and it does. Yeah. And the Lincoln Project, feels like the end of that. And except that now with their sort of like hitching their wagon to this like resistance brand and stuff like that. They're getting like screenshots of those tweets that they were sending around about I think it was probably about the, the Russian bounty thing or something like that. I saw friends of mine who are, not as sickly political as
Right.
you or I maybe am, just like reposting those things and saying like, yes, this is great. And I have to like not engage because I'd spend all day like screaming on Facebook at like my friends and family back home that like the Lincoln Project are like soulless ghouls. But I don't understand why we keep falling for this.
It's also stunning that what they can get away with saying versus had Democrats produced the same ad, it would be like a 3-week controversy
Right.
of like, how could they possibly say X, Y, or Z about Donald Trump? There is, it is, to me, it is the failure of the Democratic body politic in disassociating Trump from the Republican Party. They did this in the 2016 election. There was never a time you'd hear any type of like surrogate for Clinton, any type of surrogate for the Democrats, any type of spokesperson for the Democrats blame Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell for Donald Trump. They would never, ever, ever do it. And they did so not only to the detriment of people who are running, to Democrats who are running against Republican congressmen or I literally congressmen. I can't imagine. There's just the sheer numbers, or senators. They could have tied Trump to the rest of the Republican Party. They refused to do it, and to a large extent, throughout the past 3 years, they've refused to do it. And this is what you get on some level. You still like. There's no way the Republican brand should be able to do anything for decades. And to the extent that that will be the case, which I'm not convinced it will, but to the extent that it is, it has nothing to do with what the Democrats have done. It's just everybody is just disgusted by the Republicans.
Yeah. And I wrote a piece for Rolling Stone a while ago about sort of like the rehabilitation of Mitt Romney, because I think he's a perfect example of this. And I think it's because if the Democrats actually start treating Trump for what he is, which is like a natural endpoint of the GOP, like a continuation of
Yep.
everything the GOP has been trying to do for years and years and years, then that basically calls into question like all of the norms that they also built their power on. You can't any longer like have I think it was Chris Murphy from Connecticut praising Romney for his like courageous vote to convict Trump or something like that. If you don't have a system where you're able to just ignore the fact that like legislatively speaking, Romney's record would, if he were in Trump's position, would look almost identical, except maybe he'd be less like legally sloppy on the immigration bans and things like that, and get him held up in the court.
Exactly.
Like these are the same people. And I think that's the perspective we're coming from at Discourse, and the things that we sort of want to keep hammering on is that there are a lot of people from that benefit from having like these perspectives and this just keep being pushed, that like we can go back to the old era of respectability politics and of working with the other side, and that fundamentally like both Republicans and Democrats want to make the country a better place. They just differ on like how to do so, right? That's like the whole line that our politics were built on. And anyone looking at it now can tell that like that's just not true.